And the woman said, "It is my human right to recline my seat." Now, the point of that story was there anything more trivial in juxtaposition than to talk about human rights and whether you should tilt your seat back or not? That's the trouble. Human rights as a statement, I have the right to do this because I'm a human, I have the right to do that because I'm a human, doesn't gel because there's no common agreement about how serious that is, how widespread it is, how deep, how broad, how applicable and to whom applicable.
That's precisely why it is important to leave behind the idea of legal rights and look at human rights as a kind of moral entitlement, because she did have the legal right to do that, and you recognise that that's way too trivial a thing to be considered a human right. We need to look at human rights as entitlements, not as things that have been granted by a government.
Do you class human rights as things like the right to have access to clean water?
I'd say so, yeah.
Okay. The right to act how you please, so long as it doesn't infringe upon the rights of others. Like I'm thinking of the right for me to send my fist in your direction stops at your nose. That sort of right. Like I can do anything I like as long as it doesn't hurt you or upset you or. Yeah.
I talk quite narrowly about Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the conventions on human rights, rather than a kind of Kantian idea of where rights come from.
Yeah. Rights are reciprocal. Yeah, rights are a two-way thing. How do you explain to a chimpanzee that it is not your right to use your incredibly powerful jaw to rip that baby apart?
Yeah.
On a whim.
I don't think rights are reciprocal. For example, criminals, murderers, kidnappers, anything get the same rights entitlements that anyone else does. But chimpanzees are capable of understanding some level of morality. They've got rules and laws within their own troops, so they clearly recognise some kind of right and wrong. Orangutans have cultures, for example.
So, give me an example of how difficult this is going to be for you. Chimpanzees have been observed in the wild to plot murder. They organise themselves, they've selected a person in the troop, whatever, that they want to kill, and that they lie in wait and they actually do it. They rip this person apart. Wow, let's party. Okay, how do you explain to those chimps that that's naughty and mustn't do?
What could be more human than plotting murder?
Yes, exactly. Yes. That's why that's such a good example, because I'm thinking on my feet. But how do you explain to them, no, that's not the thing to do?
You can grant rights without imposing laws. You can give, for example, chimpanzees the right to life from the state, so that the state doesn't take away their life, without interfering and trying to police chimpanzee society. I'm not suggesting that we're going to be able to bring civilization to the apes, just that if we involve ourselves with chimpanzees, there are things that we should do and respect that we should show them, including respecting their right to life, their right to liberty, and so on.
Do we respect their right to murder one of their troop?
I think it depends on the circumstances in which that occurs. If they're in a laboratory, no, you can't set up your own chimp fighting ring. But if they're out in the wild, that's a separate issue. We haven't involved ourselves with them. We can leave them to resolve their problems.
So you're saying that might have been an appropriate thing for them to do? Okay. That means if you are talking about human rights for chimpanzees and that's one of the rights you can give them, then surely I have the right to murder who I please and be left alone. Because I hate these fuckers that live on the harbour and with their rolling billiards, I'm one of the jealous poor. I hate these bastards and I want to mow them down. So why can't I get my AK-47 and start taking a walk around the harbour and spray every one of their rich putrid houses and leave them dying? I hope I don't kill them straight away. I hope they spend the next 5 hours in utter misery writhing on their lounge room floors and staining their expensive carpet. Oh, don't worry about that.
Because there's a difference between recognising your human rights and a chimpanzee's human rights.
So a chimpanzee has more right to get rid of the turkeys he doesn't like than me. That's not fair. That's not fair. I want the right to mow down these harbour-side rich bastards.
Your obligation not to murder doesn't come from human rights. It comes from the law of the state and your moral code. That's a separate...
But sir, if the chimpanzee has the right to murder one of their troop, why haven't I got the right to murder one of my troop?
The chimpanzee can get away with murder. That's not the same as having a right to murder.
didn't you agree earlier that that would be a right of theirs to be left alone to cope with their own ways? Like, you don't do it in a lab, you stop them from doing it, but in the wild, they are allowed to murder one of their kind?
No, so the rights kick in when we involve ourselves with them. The question of a chimpanzee murdering another chimpanzee in the wild isn't a question of rights at all. It's to animals. It's when we involve ourselves in their lives that the rights kick in.
Well, all I can say is if a chimp can travel on a plane and recline his seat, then I say he's not allowed to murder one of his troop. Like, a fair's fair.
Alright, if we ever get chimps reclining their seats, we'll waive their right to murder.
The aeroplane seat's an interesting morality. I asked the stewardess if she could tell these people that this wasn't the appropriate time because it wasn't sleepy time, and that prevented me from watching TV or, you know, sipping a drink or whatever. And she said, I can't, where there's no rule that says that. And I said to her quietly, but that means I'm going to spend the next 24 hours giving this guy a wretched time by kicking his seat, swinging on his headrest. And she said, exactly. And so I did. Great time. You only stopped when we were several hours out of Sydney. You bastard had the balls of a chimp.